Test 1, 2, test 1, 2, 3.
We are ready to begin.
Welcome to the Meridian Parks and Recreation Commission meeting for Wednesday, August 11th, 2021. The time is 5:36. Could we please get a roll call?
Yes, Madam President, roll call attendance. So starting with Joe Greer,
Present.
Dom Gelsomino,
Present.
Autumn Short,
Present.
Jennifer Bobo, Camden Hyde,
Present.
Keith Bevan, believe is absent currently. John Nesmith, also don't see him online currently. Albert King, same. Jessica West.
Present.
And Jessica Pro is our council ex officio. I don't believe she is on right now. So, Madam President, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members present, which gives us quorum.
Thank you.
And for the record, John Nesmith just joined us.
It counts as 7. Okay, next we need an adoption of the agenda.
Madam President,
Commissioner Gelsomino.
I make a motion that we adopt tonight's agenda.
Madam President,
Commissioner
West makes a motion to second his motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The adoption is approved. Next, we have the approval of the meeting minutes for July 14th, 2021 regular meeting.
Madam President,
Commissioner Gelsomino.
I move that we approve the minutes for the July 14th, 2021 regular meeting.
Madam President, I make a motion to second his.
Okay, Commissioner West seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next, we have announcements with upcoming events. Garrett White.
All right. Commission, welcome.
I'm here to fill the shoes of Shelley Houston, who usually gives you guys the event update. So I'll do my best to live up to her standards. So in front of you, you guys have a list of the upcoming events, starting with the Main Street Market. If you haven't visited the Main Street Market yet, we suggest you do. It runs on every Saturday from about 9 in the morning to about 2 in the afternoon, give or take, all the way through the middle of October. So I was lucky enough to be able to check that out last weekend and walk through and see everything that they had to provide. There was quite a few people there walking through, so the attendance still does look pretty good. We're always hoping for more and bigger and better days, but it was actually pretty good this last weekend as well. As you guys all know, the movie night happens every Friday night through August 20th. The movies begin at dusk at Settlers Park and is free for all the families to attend. Also, what we've been doing on Friday nights, last week was the first week of teen night that we hosted at Home Court. There was approximately maybe a little over 30 teens that showed up. They all had a good time. I know some of our department teens went. I think Chelsea had your daughters go and they had a good time. If you know teens are looking for something to do on a Friday night for the next 2 Fridays, we suggest that you send them down to Home Court. There's free pizza that we have donated down there from Idaho Pizza Company that is for about 50 people, give or take. So while supplies last, it's free pizza. So check that out. There's also coming up here soon is concerts on Broadway, starting August 28th, September 11th, and September 25th. Meridian Art Week starts September 8th and runs to the 11th. And part of Meridian Art Week is we have the Meridian Art Sip, which would be Thursday, September 9th, right here in front of City Hall between 6 and 9. And then we have the Veteran Day ceremony at the Rock of Honor on November 11th. So I know it's a couple months out, but we still want to put that on everybody's radar. Also in front of you, you're going to have the activity guide that just got put online today. That's all of our activities that are going to be starting here soon. Registration for all those will open Friday, but that is a full booklet of all kinds of stuff. Doesn't matter how old you are, what age you are, there's something for you guys to do in there. So look forward to you guys looking through that and asking questions if you have any.
Any questions? Thank you, Garrett.
All right, thank you.
Next, we have the Parks Tour route with Steve Sidaway.
Thank you, Madam President and members of the commission. We do an annual Parks Tour usually in September. Last year, we did not have one due to COVID. This year, we remain hopeful that we will be having one about a month from now, barring anything too crazy happening between now and then. But we are moving forward with our planning and planning for a wonderful Parks Tour. We've been brainstorming the locations to go see what projects have been completed in the last couple of years since our last Parks Tour that we would want to go see. We are thinking, this is still preliminary, so watch for, we'll send out kind of a final agenda, but I'd like to give you our initial thoughts, and then I want to seek any feedback you have if you think we've forgotten a particularly great spot to go see. But right now we're thinking of possibly stopping and starting over here at the community center, Centennial Park. There's a chance with the RFP that's currently out on the streets that Centennial Park could go away next year. So we kind of like to start there in case it's its last hurrah. It'll also give us a chance to talk about the community center and plans for doing a needs assessment and concept planning as we roll into the winter. Some of the other key locations, we might go by Story Park to talk sports, talk about the possible future addition of the pool to the Parks and Recreation Department. We're still debating on whether we have the time to stop at the golf course. It's such a huge part of what we have been doing this year and are doing for next year with replacing all the irrigation and whatnot. At the very least, it's a big topic to talk about. We're trying to prioritize the stops with the time we have. And so, but golf is very much on on that radar. We may want to drive by Chateau Park along the way, don't need to stop there, but it's a planned replacement. We want to drive by the trailhead. We got to start and stop our Pathways tour there, but many of the council members may not have seen it yet, and they're going to be a key part of our audience that night. We want to take all of you up to Heroes Park and see the new parking lot project that is under construction and will be completed this fall. It'll probably still be nearing completion while we're there. Won't probably quite be done yet, but we'd like to go see that project. It's been a key partnership with PAL Soccer out there, and one of our big projects for this year. From there, we might want to go to Settlers, where we can talk about some of the partnerships. We're going to talk about pickleball tonight. We'll see where that goes. There's events and things that we can talk about there. We may want to drive by our Fairview Avenue pathway project on our way between there and Kleiner. So many new things have happened at Kleiner since we last did a tour. We got the new outdoor gym. The story trail's gone in. We got a location for the future pickleball courts that are coming. We can talk about the Arboretum and in context with the urban forestry management plan that you're going to hear about tonight. Anyway, lots of things going out there. Some of the things, and then from there, we're thinking probably return. That's going to be the majority of pretty much all the time we have. That doesn't get us to South Meridian. So some of the other key projects we've been talking about are Discovery Park. We also have, you got to see last year the new art in Renaissance Park when we did our Pathways tour, but that's another location some of the council members may not have seen. Given the fact that we don't have time to do both North and South Meridian, and we are kind of setting up for starting construction on phase 2 of Discovery Park next year, as well as replacing the playground in Bear Creek Park next year. I'm thinking next year actually is setting itself up really well for next year's park tour. So never fear that if we kind of have to bounce back and forth between the North and South, because trying to do both in one evening is a little too much time. But I'm thinking we probably stay North and focus on those this year, and then focus on projects in South Meridian next year. And those are some of the key discussions. Of course, along the way, we'll be talking about arts and sports and classes and events and volunteers. But a lot of those aren't site specific and can happen along the way wherever we are. So I'm going to take a deep breath and pause there and just ask for any feedback you might have, and if I forgot any key projects that you're hoping to see.
Anyone have any questions, comments? I think it sounds like a great plan, especially staying on one side, because I think we have crossed before from north to south during a tour, and it was a lot of drive time.
We did try it once, and we were well into beyond dark by the time we got back. Yeah.
I think that is probably a good idea. It sounds like we have a lot to see.
We will, and we're still working on, we usually try and provide dinner. We did hear from our usual concessionaire that they do not have enough staff. It's a problem everywhere, including with us, to be able to provide the box dinners this year. We also haven't found a sponsor yet this year, so we're still working on dinner. We're planning to have one, but stay tuned. We might get Garrett to flip some burgers and hot dogs for us, or we might go get a giant 6-foot-long sandwich, or we have many ideas brewing. We'll figure something out. And we're also trying to think of some hands-on activities, so it's not just driving and talking. We know that can be a lot of driving and talking. So, what are some things that we can get out and show and tell and do? And, I don't even remember I don't think many of you were on the commission last time we did a behind the scenes look at our security cameras. And so some of those things we might try and bring back because they were some of the popular hands-on activities that we've done in past years. So stay tuned. We're working on ideas, but there's the framework. And if you have other thoughts between now and then, don't hesitate to reach out.
President,
Commissioner West.
I always have to have a question, but what about Lakeview? Can we just eat there? Bring our own food if we need to? Since you said you're trying to make Lakeview a stop and they have tables and everything.
Yeah, it's a possibility, but I'm also wanting to get downtown and do the community center discussion as well. So, you know, whether we start there or start here, we're still we have tables available both. We've also toyed with the idea of the park shop, but we will figure it out.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Okay, old business. We have the Urban Forestry Management Plan update with Matthew Perkins, our city arborist. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me. Last time we met, we went over the entire plan pretty much, very briefly. Tonight is going to be a condensed version because we took your input from our last session and sat down in.
Matt, we're going to have you swallow the microphone a little more.
Gotcha. Is that any better? Okay. All right. So without further ado, do I get control of the buttons? Yep. Okay. So just a real quick review about what we covered last time. The Meridian's Urban Forest Management Plan. We covered the who, what, when, why, where, and how through building the plan. And basically, to summarize that, the plan introduces the concept and a need for a plan, outlines why trees are needed, and identifies the values that are provided by the urban forest. It proposes a mission statement and discusses the process that was used to create the plan, defines objectives of the plan. It describes the current policies and the status of the Meridian Urban Forest. It identifies the stakeholders and partners. And most importantly, it establishes a set of goals and lays out strategies to accomplish those goals. And that's mostly what we'll be talking about tonight. So the way we laid out the goals and objectives, we used a standard template for that where it calls out action items and talks about how it will have an effect, if it has an effect, on the capital cost estimate or the operational budget impact, and it gives a time frame to complete the goals. So the process of creating the Meridian Urban Forest Management Plan, it allowed me to identify a lot of areas of opportunity where we can continue to grow and build the forestry program without having a substantial impact on the current budget. Throughout the plan, while I was building it, like 5 main principles kept kind of popping up. And I used these as like guiding principles, basically, to help me tie everything together. Those guiding principles were to protect, expand, manage, inform, and partner. Okay. I won't go into the details on that just because of the time tonight, but I do want to cover each of those in the objectives of the goals that I've laid out. So to protect, basically want to preserve the existing canopy in Meridian. by developing a more robust and diverse system for mitigation of tree canopy loss during development, which is something we've been seeing a lot of with the rate of growth that we're experiencing here in Meridian. It can't really be avoided that we're going to end up losing some of our mature canopy during that process. So we need to figure out ways to offset that canopy loss during development. And we'll do that by encouraging and incentivizing the retention, protection, and incorporation of existing mature canopy into the development among the Meridian urban forest. And we'll explore and develop alternative options for tree mitigation where retention is not feasible. So that brings us into expand. We'll continue to create appropriate spaces for trees to grow and increase the canopy of Meridian's urban forest. By building new parks, we have on schedule Discovery Park Phase 2 coming on board, and West Meridian Regional Park and Margaret Aldapi Park in the future. And I'll also work to select tree species that are well suited for the location and work with designers to incorporate more tree-friendly spaces and work with contractors to ensure that planting is done correctly so that trees can reach their full potential. Also, as part of expanding the urban forest, we have the Arboretum, which is a big part of the forestry program here in Meridian. So I'll continue to make improvements to the Kleiner Arboretum. Some of those would be, an example would be modifying the irrigation to address the specific watering needs of the trees in the Arboretum, eliminate some of the turf areas and expand the bed space to accommodate tree needs and companion planting opportunities. Add additional features such as naturalized shrub perennial beds and large rocks and boulders. And then there is Lakeview Golf Course. So conduct an inventory of all trees on the golf course property. This is a goal that I have actually already achieved since starting the plan. So I like to leave that in there because that's a cha-ching for me. Then we'll build a management and maintenance plan that addresses the plant healthcare concerns that are exclusive to that property. And I'll work with the golf course personnel to help guide them in the proper care of all the trees on the grounds. Then we are exploring a system for memorial tree planting where perhaps existing trees in our parks may be able to be adopted, or we can accept tree donations from the public as memorial plantings. This is something that we're still kind of exploring and talking about. So if that happens and we move forward with that and we decide that it's a good idea for us, then we'll create a numbered mapping system so that any and all the trees in the program can be quickly and efficiently identified and located. As part of managing the urban forest, we will continue to find innovative and efficient ways to manage the existing urban forest. Inventory software, basically, since we're constantly adding to our urban forest, I need a good way to manage our inventory. And currently we're using a license that is shared with us through the Idaho Department of Lands, which has been very useful. But there are some setbacks with that. And it's so I would love to be able to procure our own license agreement for that software program. And it would open it up to a whole lot more possibilities and things that I would be able to do to help me manage all of the many trees that we have in our urban forest. In tree planting, I'll develop an organized systematic plan for the continued planting of trees throughout all the parks in our properties, including the Arboretum. The city ordinance will need to be reviewed and revised. Some of the verbiage is necessary within the text to create consistency between the tree nuisance code and the arborist duties. And I just want to make sure that everything jives. Pruning cycle will create an annual process whereby all city-managed trees are pruned on a regular schedule, and that will enable me to prioritize trees that need the most immediate care. Actually, already have a pruning cycle set forth, but I will continue to develop that as we add more spaces. And another great thing that I look forward to working on more is supporting the Public Works tree waste recycling program and finding ways to recycle or reuse some of the wood that is generated from tree removals and pruning within our urban forest. Downtown trees is a new goal that I added since we last talked, because I didn't have anything that was specific to the downtown trees. So one of the main things that I want to explore is taking care of the trees along Main Street, basically from Franklin to Fairview or Cherry Lane. And that's because I feel like those trees on our main street are the face of Meridian. And if anything were to happen to those trees that would cause them to be pruned improperly or removed, it will drastically alter, the face of Meridian. And I feel like that would be something that I should take responsibility for, to make sure that we retain that canopy and retain the aesthetic value of those trees and all of the value and the benefits that they provide for us. And then I'll continue to create more tree-friendly growing spaces to accommodate the need for lasting, mature canopy in downtown Meridian. So inform is another one of those guiding principles. That is to promote and foster community development by providing education opportunities to the public and employees through classes and tree walks, guided tree walks and self-guided tree walks at the Arboretum, through providing community education classes, maybe developing brochures and downloads that could be downloaded from our website, providing workshops for our employees and for other community tree services, and create volunteer programs and enhance our website, because we currently don't have a whole lot on our website that is directly related to our forestry program. Then last but not least, continue to build and foster healthy partnerships with ACHD, Idaho Power, Treasure Valley Canopy Network, other cities and municipalities such as Boise and Nampa and Kuna and Eagle. Work with downtown development and the Department of Agriculture. Arbor Day Foundation is a big partner, and other nonprofit organizations such as the College of Western Idaho, Idaho Botanical Gardens, Idaho Fish and Game, etc. And then there's always keeping those partnerships solid with other local contractors and other businesses. So in summary, creating the Meridian Urban Forest Management Plan has helped me to identify many areas of opportunity where we can continue to grow the forestry program without having a substantial impact on our current budget. Any questions?
I don't know if it's a question, sort of. As far as, I know that I've had conversation with some other people in the community about the memorial tree idea.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if maybe another option would instead to have people adopt the trees, only because the memorials kind of make it feel more like you're walking through a cemetery. So it kind of takes away from the enjoyment.
Right, yeah.
I don't want to.
So that's part of the exploration.
Yeah.
Would be perhaps moving to a different form of that memorialization. Like currently we have in some of our parks where the trees are memorialized, we have plaques, like big cement plaques, and that they kind of look like, headstones. So I was thinking maybe we could do something more in line with the signs that we use in the Arboretum. So maybe it's a lot less kind of in your face, and they could be actually informational too. So just an idea.
Has adopting been considered, like
I
adopting?
think we used to have an adoption program, did we? Or
Madam President, we had an adoption, I mean, most of them were memorial, it was a memorial tree program, and it did turn into more of the tombstone looking feel that we have primarily out at Tully Park right now. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we did form a wonderful partnership just a few years ago with Meridian Youth Advisory Council to put a new memorial tree plaza in Kleiner Park. And we've got a central tree and lots of bricks around it that can be named and inscribed with names. And that's still my primary focus, but even with that available, people still do love the idea of adopting a separate tree of their own. So I think what Matt wants to do is just investigate those various options and see what we come up with. But my primary avenue right now is still to promote the Kleiner Park Memorial Tree Plaza, because we still have many bricks available out there to memorialize loved ones at.
I have a couple of those memorial bricks that I purchased though. Commissioner Nesmith?
I guess I would echo the same thing. I was walking through the Arboretum, and it just, and it just changes your experience when you come to a plaque or whatever that the memorial.
Sure.
And you want to totally change everything, the vibe, the dynamic. And I would echo Steve's doing it. Walk along, go with the veterans, collaborate, place that you can come together and remember whatever you're so I would just recommend that we move that direction, or have spaces that you can go, whatever that is, and then just go adopt, be donated. It totally changes from a learning experience. I can imagine a classroom of kids out there, just totally changes the experience.
Sure.
It's kind of a bring you down.
Yeah. As part of that exploration, I kind of had in mind that there would only be in select parks, maybe not all the parks, definitely not the Arboretum, because we already have a tree labeling identification system there. But as I kind of touched on already, the adoption signs could be turned into something that was informational and educational too, and not just strictly, a and more something along like the signs that we have in the Arboretum. More exploration to be done there still.
Absolutely. You guys have any comments?
Madam
Commissioner?
President, so on the incentives, can you kind of give an idea of what the incentives are today for developers to keep trees versus what you're thinking for the future?
Incentives to have them incorporate some of the existing trees there, I think would be, in fact, I've worked with one developer already this year where there previously was a nursery on the lot, and they were going to remove all of the trees that were part of the nursery, to make room for the development, and then replant, of course, as part of the mitigation with new trees, but they would all be like 2-inch trees straight from the nursery. And so I went and visited the lot, and we were able to identify trees that were there as part of the nursery. And we were able to hire an outside contractor to come and actually transplant those trees with a larger tree spade, so that instead of just having a bunch of 2-inch trees throughout the property, now they have like 4- and 6-inch and larger trees. So another project that I've kind of been toying around with was giving credit for wood that gets repurposed or recycled from those development projects. So, yeah.
So if the new development comes in, like we've seen so much and like an old tree gets taken out.
Mhm.
Is there a time when they're requesting those permits to take them all out and build the development that you get to preview that and be like,
Yes.
okay, I would offer you this if you keep the tree or that?
Yes, yes, there is a part of the process where I come up with a tree mitigation plan. And in fact, the developers are required to submit that with their, I think even before preliminary plat. I'm not sure exactly which part of the process is, but they're required to submit that on and show that on the landscape plan that they are mitigating for those trees that are lost. But oftentimes we run into tree mitigation issues where there are sometimes thousands of inches to mitigate for, and they can't possibly do that back on the lot using 2-inch trees. So I have to find other ways to maybe work with them to get them to keep a few trees and work them into their landscape, or find other ways to mitigate that canopy loss.
And then my only other question was with the inventory software. So you said you're hoping to purchase our own license from Parks and Rec.
Mhm.
Is that part of the?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is that everything?
So I did not present this to you guys tonight in the form that it shows up in the urban forest management plan with the actions and capital cost estimate and so on and so forth. But I will send that out to you tomorrow for your review. And if you guys could to get your recommendations back to us so that we can incorporate that in, I would be very appreciative.
Thank you. Thank you for coming back and answering all of our questions.
Thank you.
Done a great job. Okay, new business. We have the Meridian Parks and Recreation Department Volunteer Program update from Chelsea Cantrell, our program coordinator. Hi.
You should have control now, Chelsea.
Great. Well, thank you for having me here tonight to talk about our volunteer program. I'm going to start it off with a quote that really incorporates our volunteers. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning how to dance in the rain. When the world is running down, you make the best of what's still around. This is exactly how our volunteers took this last year. It's been rough. They were really upset when we, had to shut the program down for safety concerns. But when we were able to open it back up at the last week of March, it was just a rush. I was expecting a few to trickle in here and a few there, but they really all came back and were ready to serve the community. So Christmas of 2020, it looked a lot different this year, but it was one of those things that volunteers begged to still be a part of. It's something that we cannot get through a Christmas without our volunteers. So this year we had to get creative, find a way for them to participate. We were able to allow 10 volunteers come and help us with our Christmas shopping for the Head Start program. We also allowed a group of volunteers to help with the Christmas Winterland bag handout, which was needed because that was a huge success. As Commissioner Joe knows, she was there dressed up in that picture. I also used one volunteer to help with decorating the trees for the Zoom with Santa. And then the biggest project we did is we organized all the gifts that we had bought for the Head Start program. And I split them up among all of our volunteers. I delivered those to their house. They wrapped them. I came back and picked them up. And then we were able to deliver those to the Head Start program. So even though they weren't able to come here in City Hall and be together like we did the previous year and wrap together, we were still able to get them involved and allow them to participate in the Christmas spirit. So our volunteer group projects this year, since we have started back up in April, we have had 14 large projects. These projects have included bark projects here in City Hall, as well as out at the parks and the fire station, as well as the safety training center. We've also had weed pulling projects out in the parks. We re-rocked the bedding out front here at City Hall. And altogether, we have had volunteers contribute 764 hours. That dollar amount would equate to $21,805 in money saved for the city. Flower planting. This is one of our most exciting volunteer projects. We have a lot of groups that want to get involved with this. We see a lot of familiar faces each year, but we were able to recruit some new groups as well. And we planted 3,300 flowers roughly, there, give or take a few, but a lot of flowers got planted this year, which was exciting. And we had a delay in flowers, which was a little bit of a hiccup. So when they were supposed to be picked up, it actually got delayed. So we only had about 3 days to get all those planted, but our groups got it done. Movie nights. So that's something that Garrett just talked about. So we have been having a lot of movie nights this summer, and we still have 2 more this year. Each week we've been using the National Honor Society students with Rocky Mountain High School. They come out, they help with setup, they help with tear down, they help with cleanup, and basically everything in between. So we try to get about 6 to 8 students each week to come out, and it's been really successful this year, and they've been a great help. City Hall. So our city, like I was saying, our regular, I call them our regular volunteers because they're here on a regular schedule. They were so excited to get back, and we actually have our City Hall schedule fully booked. So 8 to 5 every day, Monday through Friday. So that's exciting. Everyone, that schedule is full. And then our Park Ambassador program has been really busy as well. Out at Kleiner Park, we have 5 new ambassadors out there. That schedule has at least 2 people every day going and patrolling the park. I've also expanded the park ambassadors to some of our neighborhood parks. So my goal is to get at least 1 ambassador at each park that can walk that once a week. Let us know if they see anything. So we're starting to get those full as well, which is exciting. The golf course ambassadors. So this is a new program that we started this year out at Lakeview, and it has taken off pretty well, actually. So what we do out there is we use our golf course ambassadors to keep track of pace of game. If there's a problem with one group being too slow, you know, being out there to assist them, whether having another group play through or just letting them know you got to pick it up a little bit. They're out there to assist with the game. They also help maintain the course. They'll seed any divots, spots that they see, pick up any trash, and just their presence out there alone helps deter bad behavior that we had been seeing. So right now what we're doing is we have 4-hour shifts. We have 3 shifts a day. So 21 shifts a week. With this being a new program, my goal was to get 14 ambassadors out there. We currently have 11. So I'm hoping to get 3 more by the end of summer. And then they'll work year round. There will be slower times, which we're still trying to navigate what those shifts are going to end up looking like during the slower part of the year. We do trainings out there, ride-along trainings. They either ride along with one of the employees out there or one of our already established ambassadors. When they get the new golf carts coming up next month, they'll have their own golf cart that'll be labeled. They'll have a sticker that says course ambassador, so they'll be easy to identify. And then for every 20 hours they complete, we offer them a free round of golf with a partner, as well as they get the golf cart. So they're very excited about that. We have an Eagle Scout project coming up that I'm really excited about. So earlier this summer, I got a call from Roger, and he asked if we could repaint the Pine Street School fence. So I was like, okay, well, let's go look at it, find out, how much work it's gonna be, what the budget will be. We went out there and that fence is completely falling apart. The posts are rotting. So we decided it's probably better just to replace it. We were able to identify an Eagle Scout that actually wanted to take this project on. So he is going to be starting next week. We already have the supplies for him. It is roughly an 80-hour job between him and his dad to complete, but they will be tearing out that entire fence and rebuilding it, looking just the way it is, but brand new. So we wanted to keep that older wood picket fence. Don't go with vinyl or anything like that. So that whole fence it goes around 3/4 of the building will be replaced. We have a lot of new faces, which is surprising with, everywhere you go, you see help wanted signs. I feel like I've been really blessed to have so many people in our community want to come volunteer. So these are 6 people that are actually what I would consider full-time volunteers. Most of them are either doing City Hall as well as either a course ambassador or park ambassador. We've been using our volunteers in other ways as well this year. So for example, I have volunteers now helping do scorekeeping for softball games since we're short-staffed there. So we're trying to think outside the box and give people opportunities that we haven't thought of before. And then my upcoming events include the community art party, which I'll be looking for volunteers for, trunk or treat, and of course, our big event, Christmas in Meridian. And I'll stand for questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Madam President, I'm going to put in a plug with that last slide. I'm going to go back. Oh, maybe I went the wrong way. There we go. If any commissioners would like to be a part as a volunteer of any of these events, we would welcome it. And I know some of you are always part of Christmas in Meridian. Joe, shout out to you. John, thank you. And but the trunk or treat, this new community art party, which is a kind of re-envisioning of the community block party. It's going to include the Gene Kleiner Day concert that we couldn't have in June. So we'll have the symphony orchestra out there. Anyway, just a little plug since she is looking for volunteers, and you have it as a goal to participate in events as they become available. Just point out that these are some opportunities available to you as well.
Madam President,
Commissioner Gelsomino.
I definitely volunteer. If we can do the Grinch this year again, I'm in it. I'm on it. We just need a bigger costume.
Okay. I don't think Renee would have it any other way, so.
The last costume was perfect, just one size up.
One size up. Okay, I'll let her know. Great.
Madam President.
Oh, Commissioner Short, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm like hiding here today. I do have a question. How do we sign up to volunteer?
So I send out emails to past volunteers, and that's how we get a lot of them because we do see a lot of returning faces. But I also have signups on Volunteer Match.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I was just going to ask that same question, or maybe offer if there is something, if you're sending out emails to the volunteers, maybe you could get the same email.
Yes.
Is that possible?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay, Commissioner Bobo?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask. I'm happy to volunteer for both of those activities, but I'm not sure the best
Okay.
way of letting you know.
Okay, yes, I will send all of you an email.
Thank you. I suppose you probably sent it to Rachel, and Rachel could distribute as well. Anyone else? Hey.
Madam President, is there any
Commissioner
age
Hyde.
limit to volunteering? Like, could I do any of those events, or does it?
Commissioner Hyde, we do not have an age limit. I have been able to get kids as young as 12 out volunteering.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. I'm super
you.
excited. I see the okay. Again, under new business, we have the Settlers Park Tennis Pickleball conversion update, with Garrett White.
Hello again, Commission. Here tonight to have a discussion, really just to kind of talk about the possibility of converting 2 tennis courts at Settlers Park to pickleball courts. So I've put together a pretty small PowerPoint, so don't judge me on it. It took me about 30 minutes of the time I had to do it. So through this is just kind of my notes on what to talk about and really just kind of give you some information. Let's see. So the Settlers Park Tennis Complex was developed in 2 phases. Phase 1, I want to say, Steve, 2005, 2006, give or take, right around there. It had 2 dedicated tennis courts. In phase 2, which took place in April in 2015, included 5 additional tennis courts with 3 what they call quick start courts at that time, which was meant for youth tennis players and things like that. As pickleball became more and more popular, those 3 quick start courts were kind of converted over to pickleball courts when youth tennis players could still use them, but they were kind of converted over to more pickleball courts and that. And a few years after that, we were able to stripe the other tennis courts, other 6 tennis courts as dual striped with pickleball lines on them. And they use the nets and they pull the nets down just in, I want to say, 1.5 inches to make it where the pickleball nets are that height. Court number 7 on the map here, if you can see, that was still a true tennis court, not dual striped. It's kind of the championship tennis court with that. So that's kind of the quick history of how those kind of courts came about. But there are currently 7 tennis courts with 3 true pickleball courts. And then when they're dual striped, you can kind of see those black lines there with the numbers in them. Those are pickleball courts there. So there's a total of 9 pickleball courts currently. So the court use is typically when the weather's good, right? So you're looking at April through September, give or take some weeks or months if the weather stays well. But the courts are shared by both tennis and pickleball players. Primary users are the Boise Area Pickleball Association, which also goes by BAPA. Idaho Tennis Association, and really just the general public. You don't necessarily have to be part of one of those clubs to use it. It's just the general public can use it. You guys all know. 4 courts in the summer times, mainly mid-June through mid-August, early August we use 4 of those courts for our youth tennis lessons that we are in our activity guides and run through our department with the contract instructors. We also use 3 of the small pickleball courts for our youth tennis lessons 2 days a week as well for a couple hours in the mornings. After that, the Idaho Tennis Association uses 3 to 4 courts. Rarely do they use 5 courts for their league play in the evenings, sometimes middle of the day, but typically in the evenings with that. Boise Area Pickleball Association reserved a bunch of courts on Wednesday mornings, but generally they're out there every day, 7 days a week, it seems like. In the course of a year, all 7 courts were booked 2 times or less for tennis, and that was for a Idaho Senior Games tennis tournament, which they booked all 7 courts, but they really didn't necessarily need all 7, but they booked it just so they had it just in case and used them. So they could have got by with less. They just decided to book them all. Also, in the course of a year, all 7 tennis courts are booked 2 or 3 times for pickleball. So on like court number 7, when they do have that court reserved for pickleball, they'll actually tape down lines so that they can put another 2 or 3, if not 4 more courts out there with pickleball with portable nets and temporary nets. Just this last part of June, we had during Dairy Days as well, we had this big pickleball tournament, it's a regional pickleball tournament. Several hundred players, almost 1,000 players that were playing out there. I don't know if you had the chance to go out and check it out, but you could kind of see what I'm talking about when they say taping down lines and using temporary nets. So very well attended, big event, but that's kind of what they use it. They use those types of events 2-3 times a year. That was obviously the biggest one. On the normal standard one that we've had here in the Treasure Valley, you're looking at close to 400 players in those. So it was a pretty good event. So down here, you can kind of see some of the pickleball pictures and some of our little guys playing pretty serious there. Guy on the right looks like she could beat me right now. So the proposal. we had the Boise Area Pickleball Association come to us and to request to convert 2 of these tennis courts into 6 pickleball courts as shown below, and they're willing to make a financial contribution to doing this transition or conversion. So I kind of put down here and just thinking about why should we do it or why do it? One, it eliminates the tennis and pickleball players competing for the same court time at the same time. That our office, and really I get those phone calls quite a bit. I'm sure Mike gets a few as well, just with whether it be tennis or pickleball saying, hey, when are those open for tennis? When are those open for pickleball? The pickleball are using the tennis courts when we can't, and this and that. So they're always kind of competing and fighting over the same space at the same time. The timing right now, tennis courts or pickleball courts are resurfaced every 5 to 10 years based on use, weather, wear and tear, all the above, right? So typically it's a 5-year process to resurface them. Right now, if the budget stays true for FY22, we're budgeted for resurfacing those courts. So the timing's good if we were to restripe those and resurface those to 6 pickleball courts. It still allows for 9 pickleball courts and 5 tennis courts. So if I go back to, you can kind of see, if you take out court 7 there, there's still 9 pickleball courts, if that makes sense. So take a good look at that. And then if I fast forward to the new look, you can see the 9 pickleball courts there. That'll be kind of over to the right, which would still be the 7, 8, 9 court right there is really the 3 original pickleball quick start tennis courts. The other 6 would fit in there just the way it is. What that does, like I said, it removes the challenge of competing for space. It removes the dual marking of the lines on the courts. So the 5 tennis courts there will be true tennis courts. And can they still be used for pickleball? Yes, you just tape down the lines for the tournaments that come in and those types of things. But it's really just a conversion of dual striped lines to where it's a true tennis. One thing too, I say it's a true tennis. We need to talk to our tennis instructors because we run youth tennis lessons there. So we want to make sure that the junior tennis lines that are possibly used for our tennis instruction during the summer are still there if we need them. So we'll kind of talk to them, but it'll be true tennis and not kind of a spaghetti bowl of lines between pickleball and tennis and junior tennis type of thing. It also kind of removes the wear and tear on the nets, because every time a pickleball uses the net, they lower it, and then it kind of puts stress on the net and kind of wear and tear on the net. Then when tennis comes in place, they have to raise it back up, and it goes up and down quite a bit. So it's kind of a wear and tear on the net and the net system there. So one of the things we could think of about why not to do it is we would lose 2 tennis courts, right? So we'd still have 5, but we go from 7 to 5. So that's always one of those things that we really want to talk about. And that's one reason why I'm here tonight, is to talk to you guys, get your guys' feedback and thought process on what does that mean by losing those 2 tennis courts. Some of the facility users included in the discussion is obviously BAPA, who came to us at Boise Pickleball Association, as well as Idaho Tennis Association. I did have a conversation with them already. They weren't allergic to the idea of losing the 2. They still get their needs met with the 3 to 4 for their evening stuff. They do occasionally use the 5. Skylar Cook, our coordinator that oversees the field schedules and stuff like that, also oversees these type of court schedules as well. And he'll be reaching out to them early, as in this October, November, talking about next year's reservations. So that they're in the process of getting those 3 to 4, they're getting their needs met, we'll put it that way. Occasionally they have the 5. So when I spoke with them, they weren't necessarily allergic to it, but they really liked the idea of, well, how do we get more tennis courts at different parks, not just Settlers? We have the 5 there, that'd be cool. We still like it. Yeah, we'd love to have 7, but we totally get it and we understand. And they kind of like the idea of not having to fight for time, if that makes sense, with the pickleball crowd. So I did tell them that currently in our concept designs of Discovery Park Phase 2, that there were 2 tennis courts penciled in, not guaranteeing that they'll be there, basing on budget and bid process and things like that. But we still would like to have a tennis aspect out in Discovery Park Phase number 2. So they were excited to hear that, like to hear that. But really there was no like fear of losing or not being able to use their space because their needs were, they felt that their needs were still met. I did tell them that no decisions are going to be made like today or overnight. We still wanted to think about it. So there's still time to discuss it. I let them know that I'd be talking to you, the commission, tonight to get ideas and feedback and thoughts with that. So with that, I'll stand for thoughts, suggestions, questions, all the above, if you've got some.
Commissioner Nesbitt?
Question for you, and I don't know how much Court 7 gets used, but, I'm not an architect, but it looked like potentially you could 9 or possibly 12 pickleball courts where the space where 7 is, and then leave 6 courts in.
Great question. So it's,
If you're already spending money on resurfacing courts, you could put that money and just do it.
great question. And it all is where the sun sets, if that makes any sense. So when you're playing, east to west, the sun's in your eyes, whether it be in the morning or at night. And the pickleball crowd has already told us that the angle that we put Rita Husky isn't still right in the sun if you played that type of thing. So we kind of thought, okay, these are still going to be, not that those wouldn't be quality courts, right? I'm going to use the word quality over quantity type of thing. They're still going to be quality courts, but the quality of play may be a little different when you're looking into the sun. Somebody's going to be battling the sun regardless of where you're at. If we put them on 5 and 6, and that's probably why we chose and why the pickleball crowd came to us asking for the courts 5 and 6 to be converted. That makes sense. So let me go back so you can kind of look at it. Courts 5 and 6 here to be converted. They go north-south. So the sun's not in your eyes, not in your way, those types of things. If you put them on 7, you'd have to put them the other way. You could only put 4 on court 7 there based on spacing stuff. So we kind of explored that. So we could take 4, basically 2 on each side, if that makes sense, going north and south. You could turn it and go 6. And that, I think that would in ripping out concrete fencing, adding, it's way out of our budget and way out of what BAPA's budget would be, in my opinion. But looking at that, we thought the same thing. Mike and I had the same conversation yesterday and today again, just kind of like, what if we use court 7 and put them that way? And it really came down to where the sun sets and rises.
Could you pull up the other, where you had the,
Madam President,
Commissioner Hyde?
would there be a fence in between courts 1, 2, and 3, and 4, 5, and 6? Because I could just see, like, if you're having 2 players on vertical and a lot of issues with.
Great question again. So the idea is to keep the current tennis nets up to stop that exact same thing as you're talking about. So there's still be tennis nets there. Now, can it be more of just a fabric, like a curtain, like we have a home court or something like that that's just fixed there? Yes, we could be that. It doesn't have to be a net, but there we plan on keeping those tennis poles there to put some kind of a blocking fence or a curtain or something like that there. But yes, that's absolutely correct. And there's a gap in between those nets, right? So they were talking about you could easily just fabricate some other kind of net or curtain to go right there as well. So yeah, so that would be planned to stay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Madam President?
Commissioner Bobo?
That was my question as well. Granted, I'm not a pickleball player, but that seems like a lot of players in a small space. But I would assume that the Boise Area Pickleball Association knows more about this than I do. They're okay with that many players in that small of a space?
Good question. And they were actually toying with the idea of, can we fit 8 courts there? And we were kind of like, well, if you put 8 courts there, again, I'll use the word quality over quantity. I know Steve's been preaching that for me for almost 12 years now. So quality over quantity, right? So, and we thought that the same thing over, say, at home court. I'll use home court, for example. We went and painted 3 pickleball courts on the hardwood floor over there on per basketball court. We could have fit 4 courts there, but they would have been too close. You're going to have the ball going, rolling on both sides of you. If you're playing in the middle court, it just wouldn't be quality play. You'd be stopping halfway through, those types of things. So based on what BAPA's told us and what we've learned just with the 3 courts up on top there, courts 7, 8, 9 right there. We've learned that spacing actually works and it kind of fits and people are used to that and it's still quality play. So we kind of said, nah, 6 sounds better to us rather than 8, because again, we want the quality. So when it comes to 6, I think, and BAPA, the Boise Area Pickleball Association believes that 6 is good and good spacing.
So Garrett, with the 6 courts, would you be resurfacing all of that so that each court would be individually marked? Like, how does that work? Is it going to look like 6 courts were placed on top of 2 courts?
No, so
I worry about, having the net stay. I understand the purpose, but is that going to look terrible, tacky?
well, no, we want to look good, obviously, right? So it'd be all, I'm just going to use this for example. It'd be one color, the whole thing would be one color. And then the pickleball courts would be lined and maybe even colored something different. So the tennis, you wouldn't even be able to play tennis there. Tennis would not have any lines, anything. The only remnants of a tennis court that used to be there would be the net staying there. So it would just be pickleball courts out there. So they'd be color contrast. If you look out there now, you can see like the outside of like you use court, we'll use the tennis courts there, for example. You can see the tennis courts are blue and everything else is green. So you'd have everything else is green and then only the pickleball courts would be blue. That makes sense. So yeah, it would look like it was meant to be there. We don't want it to look like we're kind of scabbing something in there to make it fit. It would look like it was originally supposed to be there.
Okay.
Good question though.
Madam President, I think the one thing I'd add is we're budgeted to resurface these courts one way or another. They can either be resurfaced to look again like they do now, or they can be redone. And so it would be a redo.
And that's perfect too. The timing seems appropriate.
Yeah, that's one of my second bullet there and why to do it, is just the timing. It just kind of seems to work. But at the same time, that's why we're here. We want to vet these and ask these questions. So
I also feel like if the Idaho Tennis Association doesn't have a problem with it, that would probably be the first question we would ask. So you've already addressed, in my mind, the issues that could come up from that.
and I'll keep my dialogue with them. I want to make sure that they feel like they have a voice in this if we do this, because obviously, I mean, I told the pickleball crew, I said, well, I don't think you guys would like it if we pulled some of your courts the other way. So I want to make sure everybody has a voice in this and that the needs are still being met is really what it comes down to.
Madam President,
Commissioner Bobo.
outside of those 2 organizations, I know that the general public can use those courts, whenever there's available, but do we track the ratio of tennis players versus pickleball players in general outside of the tournament play?
Yes and no. I mean, we can visually see
Estimate
it.
It seems like every
Yeah.
time I drive by, the courts are full, but I can't say that I've ever
Sure.
tallied who's playing what game.
Sure. So I know because I get the calls, from mom and dad and, kids like, hey, when can I go out there? I mean, it seems like they're always booked with either tennis or pickleball. And when can I, it's like, well, I show them our online system. You can see when things are reserved and when things aren't, but it's still a struggle because they're kind of competing for the same space, so to say what's used more, I don't have any data to support it. More of just knowing that I get the calls, park staff sees it. It's probably, I mean, I don't want to say it's 50-50 because I don't know that. I just know that we get a lot of calls from tennis players saying, hey, when can I play tennis on there? It's always been pickleball, and if they're not fighting for the same space, that those tennis courts would be available. So.
Well, because they're dedicated, then they're not fighting,
Right.
essentially. Which means you have all of those tennis courts available all the time if they're not.
Correct. Any of your feedback, thoughts, suggestions?
I mean, if they're willing to contribute, sounds like financially they're willing to contribute and it's on the calendar to be resurfaced. So I don't. Seems like obvious.
The next steps for us would be to, take all this feedback, take all the questions, make sure we're talking to I'm not going to say stakeholders, but the users of the facility to make sure we're making the right decision and go from there. So I appreciate the questions And if there's nothing else,
Oh, thank you, Garrett.
all right, thank you guys.
Okay, so tonight we have Pathways Workshop. We have 3. I don't know if do I need to announce this individually? I guess the first one is the 6 Pathway Infill Projects Update. I guess that's an update. More, sorry.
Thank you, Madam President. And Commissioners, it's nice to be here. I will try to go through these first 2 relatively quickly so we can save some time for the workshop part. This first update is we had our 13 projects that we have been working on in 2020. We hired some consultants to look at just whether we could acquire easements and how feasible these were. And out of that batch, we distilled about 6 that seemed reasonable to move forward with right now. Some are still tabled for later, but this is then an overview of the projects that we will apply next year's budget funding to for construction. So I guess I can. So moving forward, we did, and maybe Steve can give a late breaking update. We are still awaiting final budget approval.
That's correct. The budget hearing is next Tuesday at City Council.
Thank you. So we're coming up on that. We did request 500,000 for pathways, and it looks like that's going to be granted. I meet with an interagency group to talk connectivity within the Treasure Valley. And recently we shared sort of our processes for funding pathways, amounts and how we go about doing that. And it was really kind of gratifying to see how much council is willing to spend on pathways and connectivity. And we have that more than some small cities, but we do appreciate that it's a priority here. So that would apply to our 6 infill projects, most of it. And then we're doing a cost share with Brighton Corporation for the Quartet subdivision. It's west of the wastewater treatment plant on Black Cat. And as part of their development, they will build pathway and we will contribute to the cost of their vehicular bridge. So we can have a wider pedestrian facility and a crossing, which is just a really smooth way to make that happen across the 5 Mile Creek. So, and then an Urban Land Institute workshop, a fee that I will talk about later on. So this year we've been, we are moving forward with construction documentation. We've just got task orders for most of the consultants for the projects that we're moving forward on. So I'll go through those in a second. So we will look to bid those. It's probably going to be late fall at this point. We'll push pretty hard on a few to get those into the bid window and keep the others going. And then we're looking to construct in 2022. And I'm not sure the budget, if it's all awarded, probably won't get us all of those projects, but we'll apply it as best we can and move forward. So does that one work too? Okay, just so I can see a little better. So this first project, Locust Grove, McMillan to Chinden. Locust Grove is one of our main connections north to Eagle and the river, or Eagle Island State Park and the river. So we are looking to strengthen that connection by widening sidewalk. Again, there's a stretch just east of Mr. Nesmith's Larkwood pathway at the corner that we've actually been focusing on pretty intently. We have some easements negotiated and we're getting that surveyed and some legal descriptions put together so that those can happen soon. And then we're on deck to survey for the remaining easements. We've contacted most of the owners. Most of them are looking like it's going to be able to happen. There's one subdivision that we're still trying to get a hold of, but otherwise that's looking like a pretty good run, lots of little pieces. And then this is what I was referencing earlier with the Quartet Bridge crossing that we'll be cost sharing on. You can see the highlighted section on the context map. So this is west of our new trail hub near the wastewater treatment plant. So we're moving forward with construction documents. And ACHD is developing the property just, you can see near the bottom of the screen where there's a crossing of the 9 Mile train that comes in from the south to the 5 Mile. Thank you. Yes. So that's the ACHD property. They're building a maintenance facility. We have conditioned them to build pathway. We're working out the timing of, we're proceeding with design, and we will either get reimbursed for that, or it's yet to be determined if we'll build that with our project or work it out with ACHD, but we're meeting next week on that. So Meridian Road at Victory, if any of you were on the 2 years ago pathway bicycle tour, this was the area where we came off the Reidenbach, kind of in the southeast of the context map. And then we hit that spot on Meridian Road where there's just nothing. And so we are looking to get a crossing of the Reidenbach that is shielded with some, we've got some concrete barrier there. And it's a bit of structural engineering to make sure that we can load that bridge and kind of get our pathway width and our distance and prevent falls. But I think it's a really, as we all experienced, a key connection. There was also a missing piece on the northwest corner of that intersection. And we decided not to include that in our consultant's document package. We're going to work on that directly. It's just a small bit. So that's on our list to keep of negotiations with that homeowner and connect that other dot. But this was the bigger piece that made sense to have a consultant with some structural expertise look at. So the fourth project, the context north is up, and then with the plan north is to the right. This is that Linder and Ustick Road. It's north of the Linder Pathway project we widened a couple of years ago, just connecting up to the 5 Mile pathway on the northwest corner of that intersection where it heads off toward Bridge Tower. So again, just widening to a 10-foot sidewalk. It'll be attached. We looked at some different configurations, but this just made the most sense. We'd still need to move a couple of light poles. The easement is negotiated, and as soon as we have a legal, that'll be good to submit. The county's been pretty cooperative, their attorneys, so this will probably be one of the first ones that we will be able to bid. And then just up the street a little, also on Linder Road, and Linder is another one of our priority routes north. So originally we thought this would be quite a bit longer from Cayuse Creek all the way up to 2026, but and I always forget, I think it's not Winco, it's Winco. Yes. So anyway, they put sidewalk in on the east. So a lot of that was accomplished with the intersection. So there wasn't quite as much to do on this one. We have an easement. We're supposed to hear back sometime this week, but get a signed document. So that is in the works. We'll probably lump this together with the last project and put those out to bid as one of the first packages. And then the Cruisen pathway, we initially thought that we would try to cross. You can see north is to the right on the plan. There's a penciled in route that would head to a future crossing of the Cruisen. As it looks now, we'll just do plans to move through the open space and get down to the Bud Porter pathway, and then on to the rest of what's offered by the 5 Mile route. So this for now, we just got a signed easement from that HOA. So it's in the review process to get approved by council and recorded. So moving forward with this one as well, the neighbors are pretty supportive of this. Oh, this was just a graphic I ran across since the last time I presented this to staff. Made me think of the Fairview Avenue project where I'm really excited that we have some sidewalk on Fairview Avenue. But it's taken a long time to get that. And that's because there really was quite a bit of work to be done, relocating power poles. There were some drainage considerations to work out that were a little bit different than we thought. So I just threw this in because I think it applies to a lot of kinds of work. So Fairview Avenue. Whoops, it's kind of slow. There we go. I like the sidewalk closed sign because there is actually a sidewalk to close. It doesn't go quite all the way to Lakes yet, but it's getting very close. So this is exciting. This has been a real no person's land for a while. Again, if you remember from a past pathway tour. So this will also be well, as with the rest of the 5 mile, we're working on a license agreement with ACHD to get a center line striped along the 5 mile. So this will be a place, I think, where that center stripe really gives you those cues that, yes, I'm now at Fairview, but this goes on and I can hope to continue. So yay.
So,
Yes.
So Kim, when looking at that map going back at the Fairview, so when that sidewalk that connects to that goes through Lakes is finally completed and everything's said and done, am I correct in saying that this would essentially connect? I'm trying to connect the dots here. This would be from that intersection on the map where it says Settlers Village to I'm a little turned around here. So would it be going towards Meridian Road or Locust Grove?
So Commissioner Gelsomino, this is a view looking east toward Lakes. So it's constructed from, if you look at the yellow highlighted area on the map where the pathway comes into Fairview, and then it continues about halfway to Lakes, and then you head north. What's missing, I'm just noticing on this context map, is the James Court connection. And I'm not sure why, because that is relatively newly widened. So yeah, you'd head north and then across to Meridian Road. So that I'll look into why that isn't showing on the map, because it definitely is completed. If that clarifies any. And then just a couple more pictures. This is showing where the pathway along the 5 Mile Creek comes in to Fairview from the south. And then a view of Lakes looking east, just what remains to be connected. So. And then this is kind of exciting news. I don't think Mike and Steve and I haven't had a chance to discuss, but we had requested a spot on the council work session agenda to talk about the possibility of cost sharing with ACHD for a pedestrian underpass at Star Road. Star Road is still pretty far out. It's not within our city limits, but it's within the area of impact. So there is a portion, it's a 4 square mile area called the Fields sub area that's being master planned kind of as an offshoot of our comprehensive plan that was completed about a year ago or recently. So this Star Road which is just west of the proposed State Highway 16 new alignment. If we were to do an underpass, it would be right in the middle of this planned area. And in the area, we have OIE High School that's actually opening for school, and a greenway. We're looking at possibly a regional park to the northeast of the Star. There's some office retail space, some more dense residential. So it was a pretty easy point to make that this could be a real kind of a passive amenity, but could make a real difference in terms of pedestrian connections across this space. Also, we do have an underpass on the plans for the ITD project for State Highway 16. So that would be 2 underpass opportunities in 2 miles. We don't know specifically what's happening with McDermott Road yet, just to the east of the new highway, but these 2 underpasses give us the potential to go 3 miles on a path without a major at-grade crossing. So I was feeling like this is a great way to do it if we can. This is one place where, we have a chance to. So, and then you can see my very non-engineer-ish section. ACHD is in planning right now for this, and our design. And they had just proposed a minimal culvert, and we are wanting them to add some height and some length so that we could squeeze in a pedestrian underpass. It wouldn't, it will meet specifications for that. We'll probably make it, about as tight as we can and still do it reasonably just to get the best deal for it. But council seemed interested in at least drafting a cost share and exploring that option. So that was encouraging. So that's another thing on the list. So I'm glad to report. And I'll stand for any questions before we move on to the next part.
Any questions? No? Like that. I like the underpass idea.
Thank you, Commissioner.
It's exciting that and it's wise, of course, to get ahead of it. So
Yeah, so they're actually improving the bridge quite a bit ahead of the planned roadway expansion. So the bridge will be a little bit longer on account of us, but as wide as the proposed future alignment. But the roadway widening project won't happen for a while. So there'll be some timing considerations to figure out, but they're set to construct the bridge in 2023. So it gives us a chance to maybe look into some grant funding or at least run that through the budget process. And it sounds like there might be some interest in that. So yeah.
I'm glad also to hear that council is supporting.
There was too.
All right.
Thank you. So can you find that other presentation?
So the next one is the ULA partnership update. All right.
Yes. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with the ULI, the Urban Land Institute. They are, let's move forward. So they have a mission to shape the future of the built environment, to have a transformative impact in communities. It's a worldwide organization of member professionals. I think there are over 40,000 of them. So it's global. It's been around for a long time, and it has a full spectrum of professionals associated with real estate development, from economics to land use, public and private sectors, and a lot of design disciplines as well. So people with expertise who agree to volunteer that selectively through this, it's a not-for-profit organization. So there are local councils and projects like the Idaho Expo site. I didn't hear about that when it happened, but was recent in terms of looking at scenarios at the Idaho Expo Center for how that land might be reconfigured at some point. So they've been here, and yeah, they also have some really interesting publications, and they're a disseminator of knowledge and case studies on development. So they're looking to provide leadership just for responsible land use, sustainability from a number of perspectives, and also diversity and inclusion. So Steve, I am going to cut away to you if I may. And this project kind of landed with us, and there's a little bit of a provenance story.
The possibility of this project just kind of fell in our laps. ULI being more of a planning oriented organization had reached out to or was introduced to the Meridian Planning Department originally to talk about the civic block area where the community center is. And I think they were talking about whether they could look at, the future of 2nd Street and things like that, but it was still a little premature. They're like, they said, well, we'd like to do a project with Meridian, and they felt like the 2nd Street project wasn't quite ripe or ready for that kind of a look with ULI. So they contacted us and said, hey, ULI is interested in doing something. Maybe there could be something with pathways. What do you think? And we said, don't know. We're happy to meet with them, talk with them, see if there's a fit. We held our first scoping meeting towards the beginning of this year, right? Is this where you're picking up, or you want me to keep going?
Thank you. So yeah, this kind of came our way. And again, it's a great organization. I think it's a good way to get a lot of focused expertise in a short period of time. So we're exploring this idea of hosting an advisory panel in Meridian. There's some obligation on the part of the city. We don't need to pay design fees for the professionals, but we do need to help cover travel costs. We plan it somewhat like we would if we had a consultant team visit. We'd help make the arrangements on the ground. We summarize information for them. We enter into a contract. So we have drafted a contract, and I think I've been through most of the revisions of that. So there's no cost for the actual expertise of the professionals, but we do have this lump sum that we would offer to participate, and that has been budgeted for per my earlier note. So timeline for this, very rudimentarily, is that we had a brainstorming session the other day just to say, okay, I think the initial conception for this project was that it would be maybe related to branding, identity, wayfinding. What could we best use to make our pathway system better? So we've batted some ideas around. We have the contract drafted, as I said, and then we're sort of in the process of talking about a lot of different ideas, and I think we'll need to distill those probably to get a bit more of a focused effort. So, and there will be a period of time where we prepare for the visit. I think it will be a fair amount of work. So ideally, that happens, a little bit at a time. And then the panel event is currently planned for May, and we can let you know more details. I don't remember the exact dates. And of course, that's pending, the ability to still travel, and we'll hope for the best in terms of future plans. So when we met the other day, I'm kind of laughing at this graphic because it says proposed focus areas, and it seems not very focused. And I guess we're not very focused yet. So, but these were some ideas that we threw around and that we would be asking you to consider. So these are broader categories, and I have some additional notes, and I think Steve has them handy too. As to some of our ideas that might go into these categories of wayfinding, visibility and activation. How do we, get people sort of aware that things are happening on the pathways? Maybe some standards for amenities that would include, how often do we provide a crossing, site furnishings. There's also for wayfinding, I think we hear that people would like mileage markers and some ways to kind of tell where you're going without always having to be on your phone. Stitching segments together, I amended to say continuity, but yeah, that's the reality of what we're doing. So ways to make connections, I think, in challenging places. And then identity and branding, I know we've been talking about in-house and have done a few starts with, but I think might be looking for some expertise there. Our last more broad category was funding, which would really apply to so many things. So I guess I would ask, as categories, do these seem like they cover, is there anything we're missing? What do you think seems most important that the system may lack or need the most help with? Do you have any input on any of those issues?
Madam President, Kim, let me just add my own little flavor to the context if I can. So what they're offering is to come and spend a really intensive 3-day session with us in May. And once we have that nailed down, they'll probably want to talk to, many of you, whoever's interested in being interviewed by them. But what they're asking right now at this early stage is, give us your toughest problem, toughest question. What do you have? What nut are you having a hard time cracking? We'll put together a team of experts and we'll come and provide some recommendations to you. So if there's a challenging question related to pathways on your mind that you want to prioritize and say, here's a question I want to make sure is near the top of the list, that's kind of what we're asking for.
Thanks, Steve, for the clarification. That was great.
Madam President,
Commissioner Bobo.
I would say for me and talking to the public, wanting to use the pathways to exercise on and just having a clear path that you can go on with, it's hard to find your way of where to turn and where to go. And we've I know you've discussed before in the past with if there's a painted line and there's mile markers. So you know you want to go for, say, a 10-mile bike ride or a 20-mile bike ride. How, aside from carrying this map with you, it's difficult to know how to do that. So I don't know if that fits in wayfaring or in identity.
So I'm going, can you hear me on this microphone all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I was just going to grab a pen and maybe write a few of these down.
Because there's and maybe it fits on with continuality because I just want to be able to go out on a Saturday morning and go for a nice long bike ride and know where to go.
So something, yeah, continuity, but also can I stay
Marking.
off of my phone?
Yeah, I want to be able
Yeah.
to know where I'm supposed to turn because a lot of these segments, it's really hard to know.
Correct, especially if they go through a subdivision.
Yeah, when you're going off-road through the subdivision, how do I get to the next spot? Because there's not a clear path.
The subdivisions are enormous.
Yes,
I
and
go,
you're going, wait, where am
"Where
I
am I?"
on this one? I'm not sure if I'm on this, one. I'm not sure where this one goes.
So wayfinding, but with those, some areas in particular are more challenging.
Yeah, yes.
I think it's the residential areas that are more confusing than the actual pathways themselves. Those are pretty obvious. They're paved, right?
Oh, yeah, if you're going
Anyways.
like on the Tully Park one along the canal, easy
Right.
peasy, you can ride.
But then
right
you
along it.
hop into.
But
one
then
of
where?
the other subdivisions, that's where I had a hard time. And I did have to get my phone out to see where I was lost in the
Mhm.
subdivision.
Exactly.
I've done the same, I know, when I've or gotten kind of boxed in and then had to backtrack. So,
Exactly.
okay. And I guess we are getting, we won't spend too long on this, but this is great. So with this and the workshop to follow, we're trying to kind of capture the dialogue, let it be a little less formal, but also orderly enough that we get a good record of it. So it seems to be working okay the way we're doing it, if that feels comfortable.
Correct.
Joe, feel free to take charge as
It's
seems
fine.
appropriate. Any other comments on
think
what might be
Commissioner
priorities?
Nesmith had a comment.
I had a couple things. I mean, obviously, that's a huge deal as far as trying to create some, I know I think it was 5 Mile Creek that we did a path or bike ride, and then you have to kind of snake through a couple subdivisions.
Yeah.
The dots crossed. It'd be nice to know where to go, but is it possible, or I know we had a loop at one time. I know it was around the whole city, but 5 Mile and 10 Mile Creek, is that possible to loop them? Because that would be a pretty awesome deal, if that's possible.
I'll just jump in. We do have our concept still focuses on 5 Mile, 10 Mile and the Meridian Loop. And the Meridian Loop would allow you to connect between one and another on the ends anyway. Not necessarily in the middle very well, but there would be a way to create a loop once they're all completely connected.
I was just looking at it, just if you connected 5 Mile to 10 Mile, north and south. that's
Mhm.
pretty cool.
Commissioner, I agree. And maybe we've got a note of that. Let's talk more about that if it's okay in the workshop to follow, because that's a direct question, just sort of where do we need
And
bits?
if you want, if you
Oh.
need things to do,
Yeah.
be a free study, right? So-
Yes, there's nothing, right? You have nothing.
Okay,
so-
so as to
believe-
what's up, is there anybody else?
I
Yeah.
believe Commissioner.
Madam President, yeah, so I
Commissioner
have a couple questions. So one of them we talked about was doing like mile markers, and we specifically asked for in the parks that existed on the pathways, because there's a lack there. But also to the point of just in general, when we're going in and out of the subdivisions that are pathways. I've gotten a lot of feedback that like when we're on a main road, so say we're on, like you brought up Locust Grove earlier, there's gonna be a pathway on both sides, but one is actually the pathway and one is just a sidewalk. Most people don't understand the difference. I mean, they can see, oh wait, I should have done that side, it's 10 feet, or it looks bigger. That would be the correct feedback. That side looks bigger. But if we could have some kind of identification, like maybe at the main stoplight, some way, so they know that, okay, you need to cross the street here because the official pathway side, so the safer route is on the left, or you know what I mean? It seems like on the main roads in between the subdivisions, it also gets a little bit unclear on if I need to cross the street at the light or not, because a lot of our subdivisions kind of plop you out at near a stoplight.
Right, yeah, for the signal
then-
crossing.
the other thing that we talked about, I think a couple months back, was to have at certain points to identify like key locations in the city to track distance from. Like we had talked about that, like you were 5 miles from City Hall and it has an arrow. Like we had brought that up before because we thought that that might be like a good way for people to see that, hey, this pathway would take me all the way to City Hall. Whereas it's not apparent if you're just on the street walking around, that this one really does connect you to City Hall. So, I mean, I really like that idea a lot when we put that together. So I think I wrote a list somewhere. I'm gonna have to review them, but I'm really excited. I think it's a great opportunity to have experts in the area or outside of our area, but in the field to come in and kind of give us some guidance and pointers based on what they've learned. So if all we have to do is, you know, pay for the travel, then to show up and dedicate the time, it seems like a huge win for our city. So that's a great opportunity. I'm excited. So yeah, I want to know the dates too. And if we can.
Agreed.
And I do have.
Plus,
them.
it's another perspective, you know, just like you're saying, like someone coming in who isn't from here, you know, we all have what we would like to see, but they might have a better idea.
Yeah, commissioners, or I think there are, ways they've made things happen, or they've funded them, kind of practices in other areas that we could benefit.
Right.
So I think that's really exciting as well. And I'm sure we'll include you as appropriate, or maybe somehow that can tie in with our meeting. So in general, I feel like we're almost starting to drift over into the workshop part. So I have just one graphic. I don't know if it's that important. So to get started,
So are we doing the general map now? The general map and
we're
then
going
the
to
same.
do,
Can you need me to bring up your previous PowerPoint or not?
I think we're good.
Okay.
So I thought we might run this slightly more actively, a bit like a public meeting. And I know that we had Autumn Commissioner, she was short, was remote. Do we have other commissioners in attendance that I couldn't really tell from the, anyway, if you are participating remotely and you'd like to have a vote, I think we can work that out. So this is kind of an old tried and true method, but I left you some dots at your places. And I thought it might be interesting from a point of view perspective to see, if you don't mind, we're not looking for you to tell us your address, but maybe put the blue dot in the quadrant of the map north and south of the interstate or east and west of Meridian Road. I'm just kind of curious to see the distribution of where you live in town, just so we know, we tend to know our areas best. So if you don't mind, just a quick walk through, a little 7th inning stretch with the blue dots. Yeah. And again, you don't have to be very specific. You may be, but and then go up and get the feedback and come back.
Madam President,
Yes.
if somebody would be so kind as to put a dot over in the Sky Mesa off of Eagle and Amity area for me. Thank you.
Okay, we have you up there.
Is mine on? Mine is on now. I'll stand sort of near you so we can catch some of the dialogue.
I
So
want the railroad tracks. So how does
yeah,
that
the railroad
happen?
tracks are near
Can I just-
Franklin. Yep, there you go. And I can help you find things on the map, because I'm pretty familiar with it. Yeah. Oh, great.
Like the ones that we already know you're working
Well, that's true. I think,
Like, you don't want us
let's,
to do
let's go
those,
to
right?
some degree what, yeah,
Not our
things
discussion.
that might be places that we haven't prioritized yet.
I want to be able to ride long distances without stopping at a stoplight or stoplight.
That's,
I know we have mile markers, streets every mile, so there's not very hard to do, but sometimes I'll go around the quadrant of mile 40 miles.
so the continuity is maybe more important than the destination, just
Yes.
exercise, like we were saying earlier. That's fair.
The biggest areas for me is right here in Discovery Park. I can ride all the way from like Gordon Terrace. Road, there's I always end up like across there or riding across there. Here and way to get, there's no sidewalk on.
Yeah, and I know that with the Lake Hazel improvements, we will have sidewalk and some pathway too, I believe, that will front Discovery Park. But that's a really good point, and I know we've been aware that South Meridian we've had some connectivity challenges. There's some things to go see, and some of the development and infrastructure hasn't quite caught up.
I run into that
Great
same
point.
problem of.
So the northwest section specifically.
Around here.
Okay,
There's no sidewalks. a lot of that
so
to get from my
I
house
remember,
to
yeah,
there.
Black Cat and
Yes.
McMillan, so the very northwest part of town.
You just
And some
can't
of
do
that, yeah, with Jump Creek, I think there are a few pathways that are going in, but yeah,
In other areas, you can take a sidewalk that's maybe not halfway sidewalk,
Right.
and you can get there, but it's not
Not
visible
even-
there.
so the northwest. This is good discussion. This might be better than simply voting. And the golf course itself, it's a hard one to get through, but I know that's an area of town where we just really don't have much in the way of pathways, so.
Yeah, for me, it's.
Just kind of a sidewalk and
Sidewalk,
not
yeah,
anything very
So I guess
fluid.
that would- Did I put
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, or something in the, so Black Cat, yeah, there's not a lot of good access from the northwest south to the golf
And I
course.
roller blade.
And then after this, I think we will, I have another map. I thought maybe you could take a minute and look at your maps, or we'll draw in some of the kind of problem areas, or we can start doing that anytime. Just kind of roll over. Along the, around the riding bar. This is. Oh, yep. At Meridian Victory. Yep, but this was where we had the two gaps. Mhm.
This is where we stop. This was one of our projects, one of the 13 that we started off with. But we have an opportunity to cost share. But we're still debating whether to cross here, go down the other side, or to stay on the park side, because the cross signal north side. You have to go across water. Weird, so we might jump here and go down. But that's. Preliminary design, then go to right away and construct. We need to keep our.
That
you know,
project.
that's-
We've met with them already, but yeah, we want to keep it on the radar. And this section of the Reidenbach, there's an access road that continues, but there really isn't room to put a pathway. We don't have. We've diverted up, so that makes that especially important. So, and then Dom, where was your last placement?
This right here, just where the apartment. There's a lot of. You get them out.
So from Pine and 10 Mile heading north toward Fuller Park.
Right.
Yeah. And I know that 10 Mile, let's see, where's the trailhead is up here. So I think these two segments have been worked on. I'm guessing
Yeah.
they're more.
They're pretty good. It's
Yeah.
7 feet.
But it's a sort of a brush risk in terms of vegetation.
You have to duck the trees on this part.
Oh, well, we could. Some of them are.
It's not a, this part here is not a pathway, but there's a lot of trees on that sidewalk
Okay.
and the.
Kind of their note there. So let's see.
Where they,
Like that.
Across here, and then there's no.
That area, we went there.
Yeah.
like,
It's this
for
So
first
it
time.
goes north?
On the commission.
Because you can't get across unless there is no way to get across because there's
So there's no way to make this
so
connection.
it's this right here.
So
Pathways are useless because you can't get there. And if you drive there, park your car and then just ride up and down this little spot, but then you know, there's no way of getting there from any other place. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, so thi-
exciting.
So this is actually, Brighton is in the process of building this right now. They're putting the infrastructure in for the subdivision and then the path will go in and then this is our project to connect up here. Which is.
It's just, I see all these on the mark and it looks like there's a lot of pathways, but they're.
Yeah.
So we need to stitch it together.
Stitch it together.
Yeah.
Maybe we just keep that. Yeah, so this has been a really key mile that's been missing. We will need a crossing here too. The signal crossing.
Yep.
Because that,
Yeah.
You're stuck.
And
Yeah.
it's useless to go there.
because I needed to get here
Yeah.
to get across, to get back up across. So.
so,
That's one of those
yeah,
CHD community programs that.
also.
We need to push.
One thing, and I think maybe per John's comment earlier where, we have 5 mile pathway, we have the 10 mile pathway and what connects the two. And we do kind of have the Meridian Loop ink outline. But I think just down here, this is our working layer and with some of the proposed pathways, I've just tried to draw in a few connections either on the mid-mile. Here we have one that would come south out of Quartet and then it would go north up to McMillan and it'd be approximately on the mid-mile. So this would be pathway, this would be pathway, and at least then there'd be the option of maybe getting across it. It doesn't look like it's maybe as elegant as we'd like it to be, but we are thinking in terms of, we have some good pathways, but can't get from one to the other, or, yeah, crossings are a really good thing to comment on. And the kind of more micro level detail, I think that we know for the places that we're out on, but.
Perfectly fine, because there is a sidewalk there, maybe a narrower sidewalk, like, right? And these other areas.
So the dark marks were just Meridian Road and the interstate to kind of divide into quadrants, just to get a sense of sort of where people live.
Alternate route.
An alternate route, let's see. They tend to be in places like we were just talking about the Reidenbach. And we'll go north on Stoddard, but there was originally a pathway scheduled or planned to be here, and there really just isn't room for one. So it's been diverted, but like that's sometimes a way to leave it on the map just in case that ever would become an option. Or there are other areas. There's one, I think it's on the 10-mile creek or maybe the 9-mile where, you know, ideally it would go along the creek, but people have developed their backyard landscapes right up to. So probably you're not going to get easements. So I think that the alternate route is either, you know, we could go this way or we could go that way, or it's a way of keeping something on the map that maybe, you know, probably won't ever happen, but I hate to take it off. Just, yeah. And there were a few over here too, where we had pathway along. I think it's still the Reidenbach, but it makes more sense to kind of go through this way based on land ownership patterns, or, but it's, yeah, kind of a way of preserving some remnants. Or South Slough, isn't it? Yeah, it does look like, and some of the older areas of town just pathways plan wasn't in place, so some of those happened. The way the land was platted, they didn't tend to have a common lot. You know, you could ask, now we could ask for one common lot to be dedicated for an easement, but we don't have those. So some of those patterns are tricky. I know we consider micropaths and how to get through areas and connect to the system in new developments, but it's a bigger, you know, that might be.
Have to write on the.
Yeah, it's a bigger problem in some of these areas.
Like these, so this is the new 55 and plus, this is the new 55 and plus. So I biked. Now I'm gonna go back, but I know it's starting, like. One time we were talking about, we don't
So
want
this-
people
this
to
isn't
end up.
there.
That's not,
That
that's
one's
why I
the
don't
dot.
have.
That one's not
Yeah.
there.
It's just
That's-
a
there's a
road.
resident road.
I should have explained the
Yeah,
symbology.
there's one resident. So when it changes.
That's my
We
frustration. That's
have
my
it-
exact frustration with a lot of these paths.
Yeah.
There's a
And it
lot
is
of
very
marked,
frustrating.
But they're used, a lot of them are not usable.
So
Yeah.
if that ever redeveloped, they'll have to put a pathway in. Have it on.
Could have just modified our pathway right here and had it put in. All of
Yeah, except we're trying to get it to line up so we could have a process. No, I know, but we could, but if this was put in, then.
And Ada County Highway
So
is going to be
to
more.
get to Kleiner, we don't have anything. That's probably a good place.
So
No, you're
Kleiner
absolutely right.
access.
Because we're trying to get there and we don't want them to go on Eagle Road. I know we've talked about this in the past. This counts as a pathway, but most people are not comfortable.
It's not.
But Records goes through now, and that would be, I mean, it's not a
Where is
pathway line,
Records?
but it's almost like a frontage road to Eagle. I think it's this one. Isn't it? Yeah,
That is.
so
Then
maybe
that
that's
could be-
something.
I think our main goal is to not make people use Eagle Road.
other big roadways. So, but maybe we could, that's a good one to sort of think about. And that, yeah, even,
Yeah.
because there's going to be housing here and it is, Kleiner Park is so great and it's not an easy place to get to. I have coworkers who live over here and that's easy to make your way through.
But it's not easy from here to get to there. Eagle Road is such a barrier that. All the homeowners. Have to get it from 30 homes, 30 individual owners. And there is absolutely. It looks like a nature, you know, town, whatever we develop. That's something. It's a tough one. About 5,000. Really, it'd really be cool.
was fair.
Like the rest of our-
Yeah, put the rest of your dots right there.
And I think the patterns of development here tend to be more, they're these neighborhoods and they're really nice and they want to be somewhat insulated from traffic that sort of, spills over. And so it can present challenges to connectivity. What other destinations? We talked about Discovery Park.
Yeah. So Fairview Avenue. And then so Fairview is likely to get a complete makeup here. And maybe the way to go, because there's so many barriers right here, is to go from 5 Mile Creek Pathway. It's not perfect because there's still a lot of traffic and noise and intimidating, but if you had a foot side here up to the village, that might be pretty cool. It's kind of in the works. I don't know exactly what stage it's in, but it's either preliminary design and then they go to right away and then construction and then access management's been talked about for several years. It's controversial because if you have a business there and you eliminate the ability to make a left-hand turn into your business, it can get you pretty riled up. But those are some of the things that they're trying to work through. But that might be the connection. Then you could theoretically you could get from here and ride to the village, and there's not riding along a creek, but it's safe.
Commissioner Short, if you can hear us, if you have any suggestions you'd like us to mark on your behalf, we could do that.
I am just actually watching right now. So, but thank you.
Well, I have two I'd like to throw out just for discussion. One is that since similar to Kleiner Park, Settlers Park is okay. Settlers Park is currently disconnected from the pathway system and is a major park destination. None of the existing pathway network connects directly to Settlers Park. So that's one to think about. Another one just to throw out. Turn it off and back on. Yeah. So, and then one more not park related, but that I could see some benefit to having a connection to would be like the Roaring Springs, Wahoo's campus. So thought I'd just throw that one out there for discussion.
Outside.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty awesome.
We had one indicated over the. I know Linder is being accelerated.
So one of the reasons that that Creason pathway that we currently have in the works, and we got the easement for the other day, which is right here. And one of the goals of completing that section is that north-south connection to South Park. There's still a private drive and a house at the end of this, but when that redevelops, there'll be from the 5 Mile Creek pathway, you'll be able to go north and cross U-Stick. There would be a push button crosswalk to get across South Park. So a little bit of thinking ahead, knowing that some of this right up in here will change hands. When it does, there will be a pathway there. The rail with trail is again a lot of challenges with that. Even the 1 mile section that we're working on easements from Linder to downtown.
Yeah, you're gonna drive, you want people to drive and park their car right there to ride their bikes down.
But what we want to do is we want this, and you start, and it's
I get the
stitching.
game.
Slow stitching. Yeah, it's a long.
But having all these little segments everywhere that
Yep.
you just can't.
Well, and there are some areas like love the
it's
idea
weird.
of the rail. So there are areas where someone's developing on the corridor. Kind of industrial. So
If I could just offer one bit of context. Go back a decade ago, the commission was identifying and prioritizing to prioritize the route. So that's when the commission
Yeah, you know, looking. Have big plans, but as soon as this construction is done, we'll have this connection. We've already got the system. For now, you probably need to just drive. Not that it's a place to be parked.
Coming down Pine Street, from Mile up to high school is. We, over the years, would Okay, I
There's a
see
little bit
that.
of a connection here. That's just
Oh.
showing Pine Avenue itself. Some of the feedback that we got is that the most important schools for bicycle connection are the middle school. Fewer high schoolers ride their bike to school, and some elementary schoolers will ride, but for the most part, they're gonna be off the middle school is kind of the sweet spot. Although it would have utility at all of them.
Right.
For some.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, Meridian Middle School. Very side of that same.
School, high school.
Oh, okay. Oh, there it is. Okay.
There wasn't, yeah, it was just a tight squeeze, both sides.
So through the back of the high school, we actually have an easement, but in order to build the pathway, we would have to wipe out part of one of their softball fields. And well, honestly, we didn't want it either because, you know, knowing that a lot of, like Steve said, high schoolers drive, a lot of them do, and you know, you can, it's open, it's accessible, it's just not super friendly. And then the other thing is that we still need to get on the, there's a possible alternative connection right through here, because this is actually an irrigation facility that cuts down the pine, so that's a possibility.
There's, although it may not be as good as just when this.
Right.
Through the.
But
empty
when
parcels
when
somewhere.
this piece develops, there's an irrigation facility that'll either stay in the same spot or get relocated. But whatever it is, we need to get a pathway on.
In general. And I just have somebody. And here we're. So that's when it's getting.
It's been really helpful. Good.
Yeah, no, this
Yeah,
is good.
thanks for
Way
manning
more
the
than-
mic. I suppose it's kind of hard to know how to. And it looks like it's getting to be, um, there-
this is all ripped up.
There's a crossing right here. Then this pathway right here is going to be built along on the road. This goes to here. Actually, it goes to right here. It's pretty good. There's a little missing section that we need to still work on and get across. All this is getting built. There's going to be sidewalks up and down Lake Hazel Road, sidewalks up and down Eagle Road, detached from the road. So they're not full sidewalks. 7-foot sidewalks, but not a path.
Sidewalks, but not a 10.
So a 7-foot detached pathway.
We're getting some, oh.
And then there'll be a crossing right, there's a crossing going in right here. A pushback crosswalk right there. To then access all.
Then a new road.
Yep.
And then. So getting much better. Acquiring those things. The lab sites, yep. So,
Oh, right here. Oh,
creation
yeah.
that sometimes is not.
That's going into construction. And along with that, Locust Grove and Lake Hazel, and the rest of Lake Hazel Road is also going into construction. Curb gutter, sidewalks, streetlights, landscaping, decorative rocks.
Will there be like a crosswalk from like across Lake Hazel to get to the park? I ride my bike to that.
Sidaway.
That was one of the.
But it is, it's,
Recreation.
Lane
South Recreation Avenue.
Avenue, excuse me.
Sidaway.
Not happening.
No,
Yeah. Recreation Way, much better.
Yeah,
Avenue, Recreation Avenue.
South Recreation Avenue.
yeah, it worked out. but-
Oh, Harky McPartface.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I guess the process to some of a little bit, anywhere where I don't have city limits. This is our area. Some of these areas, as people enter. That's a chance. before we sign that. In general, trying to start. Talk. And it's not really shown here. They have a pathway. They have kind of a major pathway along.
gonna start and where? Oh. Area of impact, but it's not.
So the city limits don't go all the way there yet, but that's where
Okay.
the city limits will transfer
Got
from
it.
Meridian. When it's all.
So, actually,
They were trying to absorb this way.
yeah. They were
Some cool
effective.
Absolutely.
Or if you're driving.
And then settle it. Yeah.
So much development. Like connectivity really is. Yeah, I mean, we used to.
I was thinking that
Slowly
it
but
would be,
surely.
it would be
Yeah.
kind of nice. Yeah. Should.
For pathways. Yeah. I think it was 50. Yeah, I don't know. We have to go back and look. It's a priority for the mayor, it's a priority for the city council, it's a priority for the commission, it's a priority for our department. So it's nice that we're all aligned that pathways are a priority. Community wants pathways as well. It's the wayfinding aspect that I think we're really lacking.
Yeah.
Wayfinding is a definite challenge. And when nothing connected, it was kind of like, well, what's the point? There's no way to find. But now that it's starting to connect, it's becoming more and more important to say, okay, turn, where do I turn? Where does this go? What's the destination? Yeah.
Or maybe. Maybe it's not a just fine. I
don't know. Something very dramatic. Where am I? Right, yeah.
Where you get on the road.
Or maybe it's still on. Because there's some on routes, right? Places where we.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate all the feedback.
Maybe.
You're unstoppable.
Okay, thank you everyone for the brainstorming. Really good information. So we will move on to staff reports. And who would like to go?
One moment, I'm just changing the the view. There, now we can. All right. I think the two things I want to focus on is one, budget hearings are next week. So we look forward to the FY22 budget being set. If it gets approved as currently proposed, we'll be moving forward in short order with Greenplay to get a contract underway for the update of the park system master plan. So have that on your radar because you'll be heavily involved with that. And we'll start working on contracts so that we can hit the ground running this fall as soon as the FY22 budget begins in October. Related to that, we will also be doing the concept planning for the community center and a fee cost recovery analysis, all as part of that same effort. So pretty big one, pretty important for the overall visioning and master planning of the department. And the other thing, we've already covered the parks tour. So again, just to call out, if you think of anything you'd like to point out or recommend related to the parks tour, it's planned to be our meeting for the commission next month. So we're working on that actively now, and I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Steve.
I'll go next. So a lot of Lakeview items. This evening, there was about 80 women from the Meridian Chamber of Commerce women in business. I guess I got a couple of pictures text to me, and in addition to the regular golfers out there, the place was absolutely packed. Good to see. We got some new fountains going in and electrical work. Started the irrigation design and negotiated the design of cart paths to overlay on top of that so we could bid that at the same time. We're prepping for an early end to the irrigation season. The irrigation water is going to stop on September 14th this year. So we're prepping for that. Matt and I went out and identified a number of trees that either need removal or pruning. And yeah, got that in the works. The new carts that we ordered are shipping from Georgia next week and should be arriving probably in 2 weeks from now. So that's exciting. Been working on Discovery Park. We got our certificate of zoning compliance as submittals into ACHD. Williams Pipeline submittal is going in this week. Got our cooperative development agreement approved last night at council to widen Lake Hazel Road and construct a big portion of Recreation Avenue in front of the public safety thing. That's a partnership between Brighton, the city, and ACHD. So approve both pedestrian connectivity and obviously vehicular flow around there during big events. And basically getting us, we're positioning for kind of an earlier bid, like late October bidding, open bids December 1st. We want to get on the schedules, don't wait until winter to be the first ones to bid during the bidding season. So that's kind of our strategy. And then Heroes Park, Kleiner Pickleball that we talked about several months ago is still on. We have a reimbursement agreement that's currently with Brighton that's getting reviewed for signature. And our hopes is to construct this fall. We might run out of weather to actually apply a coating to the courts this year because the concrete needs to cure for 30 days. So we're going to bump into weather, but we'll get 90% of the work done this fall. And as soon as the weather allows, we'll apply a coating to them probably next spring and open them up. So be happy to answer any questions.
Are you having any issues with getting the material for that? I know that the contractors, I have some projects that bid out and they were talking about shortage or I guess moratoriums on how much concrete they could have and the cost. They're only getting a 3-day guarantee on some of their bids. Are you seeing any of that?
Yeah, we're actually seeing that concrete. There was a shortage at a fly ash plant in Oregon, which is where Idaho gets most of its fly ash from. That combined with the demand, concrete was in short supply. They were taking orders like a week out. I know Fairview Avenue had an issue. They were pouring out some more sidewalk just this week, and the comment was, if we can get concrete.
Some of my contractors said they were allotted 200 yards per week.
It's tough.
Okay. I was just curious. I know that bidding right now.
Irrigation contractors right now are holding their price for 1 week.
Yeah. Because
of the PVC pipe is so volatile right now that it's crazy.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some strategy that goes into, with the golf course irrigation, we're probably going to get them to, we'll give the low bidder a conditional notice of award, and we'll say at that point, they need to hold their price. So we'll try to get that conditional notice of award out within a week. And then once they get that, they need to hold their price. They can't say, we just got a price increase. You got to pay for it. So we're aware of a lot of the shortages and fluctuating prices and the volatility, and we're just trying to do the best we can and strategize.
Just curious.
So,
how
yeah,
it's affecting things.
It's weird.
And it is. It is a weird time to be doing construction. Okay, thank you, Mike. Gary?
All right, third time tonight, get to talk to you guys. So a lot of things that I've been doing recently is staffing. So since we last talked to you guys, we have 2 new staff in our department. One is over at home court as the new home court site supervisor. Her name is Renee McFarland. She has started this last Monday. So she's been on the job 3 days now and loving it, and we're excited to have her. So if you do go over to home court or visit over there, say hi to her. She's there typically Monday through Friday, about 6:30 in the morning until about 3:30 in the afternoon. So go over and say hi to Renee when you get the opportunity. Another one, as you guys all know, Vicky retired. Vicky Wagner retired just recently. So we just filled her position, who was Kayla Hopkins is her name. She's supposed to begin on the 23rd. Right now is her tentative date, pending all the pre-employment, background, all that kind of stuff. But she is scheduled to start on the 23rd. So we're excited to have her. So since I talked to you last, I've been in a lot of interviews, asked a lot of questions and did that, but I've been overseeing a lot of the external events too. The Soul Food Festival just happened last weekend at Kleiner Park, and upcoming some of the external events, there's a vendor fair. There's art in the park. It's like a Treasure Valley Art Festival is coming here August 27th, 28th, 29th. I believe that's what it is, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'll be at Kleiner as well. And then right after that, the following weekend is the regional Mustang show. And that is supposed to be pretty big. I spoke with the gentleman running it today. They have about 300 cars right now. And as soon as they open borders and stuff like that regarding COVID stuff, they're hoping to have a lot more. So that's a big car show coming to Kleiner Park over Labor Day weekend. So that's coming. Otherwise, just been working with staff, training staff, and doing some budget stuff. Special events, as you guys know, we've been doing a lot of movie night stuff. Teen movie night started last week. Like I spoke about this first thing that during this meeting, about 30, little over 30 teenage kids show up to the first teen movie night at home court. So we call that a success and hope to grow it in the near future in the next 2 weeks. So spread the word. Sports, doing a lot with softball, volleyball, basketball, cornhole, stuff like that. Both Maggie and Skylar are trying to analyze and kind of see where our gaps are when it comes to different things. So they're looking at that, as well as all of our budgets. As you guys are just talking about concrete shortages and prices and price increases. Well, that's not necessarily just in the parks world, but in the rec world too, when it comes to officiating and different equipment is going up as well. So we're reviewing all the budgets and trying to meet all of our cost recovery philosophy and standards with that. So arts and culture has got a lot of stuff going on. I mentioned concerts on Broadway, Art Week, mural series stuff, traffic boxes, just a lot of stuff going on in the rec department there. Home court, mentioned staffing. We are struggling to hire our part-time staff. So if you know anybody that is wanting a part-time job on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, please let us know. And the everything's online, so please apply if you know anybody that wants a weekend job. Otherwise, home court will be closed August 30th through September 8th for the annual resurfacing of the floor. So that'll be done then. And then Jake has also been working on schedules for the fall, working with different youth groups, AAU groups, YMCAs, Ignite, I mean, you name it, they've been working with it, try to get in there and schedule events, tournaments and things. Jenna with summer camps, Friday is the last day of day camp this summer. So she's kind of excited about that, but she did throw together a outdoor adventure camp once she realized what staff she had and things like that. It's only a 1 week deal. She can only take 12 kids, but she posted it and it filled in 45 minutes. So that's a very popular camp. We were hoping to run more early in the season, but not knowing where we were with COVID and close encountered and driving around in a really close van, shoulder to shoulder, we opted not to run that this year. But reality is we were short camp staff as well. So we were able to host camp at 2 different locations for day camp. With things up front with Jeanette and everything, with Vicky being retired and not having Kayla on board yet, Jeanette has been taking the brunt of all the phone calls, all the emails, registration, reservations, all that kind of stuff. So when Chelsea was here earlier speaking, she was talking about all the stuff she has going on. Well, also, our whole department has stepped up in some way. It's really a good team. So I got to give a shout out to really the whole team. Skylar and Maggie have been filling in at home court where they can, just as bodies on site to take registrations and stuff like that. And that's not their wheelhouse by any means. Chelsea has stepped up and she's literally running movie night at Settlers while Renee's over doing teen night at home court. So she stepped up and literally owned that as well. Rachel, Renee, Shelly, Audrey, everybody else in the office has covered the front desk to give Jeanette a lunch or vacations or whatever it may be. And it's really been a pretty good team effort there. So if you see some unfamiliar faces at home court or covering the front desk, that's why. We're a pretty good team. So with all that, I'll stand for questions, if any.
Don't have any questions? exciting. It's exciting that you were able to hire some people.
We're
Definitely.
pretty stoked.
Good for the part-time or at home court.
Yep.
Is that on the city website?
Yep, yep. So please forward it on, pass it on to anybody and everybody that's 18 or older that's looking for a part-time job.
Someone? Okay, thank you so much, Garrett.
Yeah.
For all of your presentations tonight. Kim, did you have anything that you wanted to add tonight?
Thank you, Madam President. I really think I've covered a lot, so probably not much. I wonder, just to follow on comment, I was trying to get a few ideas down while some of the other staff reports were happening. And I had the idea for some of our wayfinding, but maybe we need two maps. Maybe we need a map that is for developers and it shows our pathway plan. And maybe we need a map that, it's a lot of the same lines, but it shows you how to get from here to there safely. So I'll just plant that little seed. I don't think we need to discuss it now, but thank you for your input once more. I think it's really valuable and I already feel like there are some things kind of percolating through. So I'll try to capture that in a summary and come back to you with other
Yeah,
ideas.
I think that sounds like a good idea. I think that's probably what most of us are kind of maybe needing.
Listening. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for all your time
It's
and
nice
participation.
for, I guess, and in my own opinion, it's nice to have commissioners who are active, right, out in the community and that you guys have good input. It's really valuable. Okay. Anything else? Anybody have any questions, comments? No?
President, if there is no further business, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Madam President, I would like to second his motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for all of your help and input.